day to everyone present here. My name is Nyla Fernando, and I am going to be talking about the topic of international conflicts, the past, present, and way forward. Conflicts are a part of life. They're a way of expressing our opinion while also broadening our perspective of others. When done right, they could be a constructive venture, both parties benefiting in some way, whether it be from mutual understanding, acceptance of a new ideal, or even more concrete evidence towards their argument. Irrespective of how, there always is. Now, on a small scale, this is quite easy to detect a simple squabble and its ups and downs. But on a larger scale, between two countries, now that poses an interesting dynamic. As common people, there's only so much we can do. But a whole country and all the military power that comes along with it, now that's the kind of power we don't usually mess with. And two powerful countries having a conflict just seems like a recipe for disaster. But is it? Or rather, is it always? The relationship between the US and China has never been a bed of roses. Today, we see them as the two largest economies in the world. And while the US has always had a sort of monopoly over the economy, China has shown some significant growth over the last few decades. Some attribute this to large scale capital investment and rapid productivity growth. And while those are huge factors in its up for coming, I believe that a part of their success comes from their rivalry with the US, not only slowing them down, but also striving to beat them. Because the psychology of anything plays an important part in any form of success. Their international conflict stems all the way back to 1949, right when PRC in China was first established. Though they didn't know it yet, this was the start of a long, ongoing chain of tense standoffs, diplomatic arrangements, and a growingly intertwined trading community. It seemed as though these two were just never meant to become allies, as their standings were always on opposite ends of the battlefield. Take Korean War, US, South Korea, China, North Korea, Taiwan's independence, US was all for it. China? Well, China believed in the one China policy, where only one sovereign state under the name China, with the PRC serving as the sole legitimate government of that China. And Taiwan was a part of China. So, any ideas of China and with Taiwan and independence was just a no go. Even Tibet's uprising, which was not in favor of China, was backed up by the US. These two could not keep their peace. So much so that when China first tested their atomic bombs in 1964, the US was alert in case of an attack, which never happened. But, despite all this ruckus, it was never too late to make amends. In the first sign of warming relations between Washington and Beijing, China's ping pong team invited the members of the US ping pong team to China on April 6, 1971. Journalists accompanying the US players are among the first Americans allowed to enter China since 1949. This finally led to the US recognizing the People's Republic of China and endowing it with the Permanent Security Council seat that had been previously held by the Republic of China on Taiwan since 1945. The good vibes just continue to grow, albeit slowly, throughout the next few decades. In 1979, even convincing the US president to grant China full diplomatic recognition, while also acknowledging China's mainland one China policy and severing normal ties with Taiwan. But you see, this newfound alliance was soon eliminated by the Tiananmen Square massacre, where protesters were cut down by the hundreds by the Chinese government, earning a, looking back, justified response from the US, which was to suspend military sales to Beijing while also freezing their relationship with China. And just when things were looking good again, with Washington and Beijing agreeing to exchange officials after Taiwan's first free presidential election, NATO accidentally bombs the Chinese embassy in Belgrade during its campaign against Serbian forces occupying Kosovo. Despite apologies, thousands of Chinese demonstrators protest throughout the country, attacking official US property. Again, a justified response for what a mistake had done. But, putting this complicated history behind, the one thing both can agree on is something that most big corporate places can agree on: money. President Clinton signed the US China Relations Act of 2000 in October, granting Beijing permanent normal trade relations with the United States and paving the way for China to join the World Trade Organization in 2001. Between 1918 and 2004, US China trade rose from 5 billion to around 231 billion. That's a huge marginal change. And in 2006, China surpassed Mexico as the United States' biggest trade partner, right after Canada. Needless to say, this was huge for China. With this new understanding between the two, the Deputy Secretary of State in US, you know, he coaxed, gave a little nudge to China to use its influence to draw more nations such as Sudan, North Korea, and Iran into the international system. And it worked. And despite seeming like it would go smoothly from here, boy, did it take a detour. March 2007, China announces an 18% budget increase in defense spending. The US Vice President says China's military buildup is not consistent with the China stated goal of a peaceful rising. China says that it is increasing spending to provide better training and higher salaries for its soldiers, to protect national security and territorial integrity. Whatever be the truth, it definitely severed some of the good vibes between the two nations. And with China becoming the world's second largest economy in 2010, on track to overtake the US as the world's number one economy by 2027, tensions only grew. The US, the EU, and Japan filed a request for consultations with China at the World Trade Organization over its restrictions on exporting rare earth metals. The United States and its allies condemn China's quota violates international trade norms, forcing multinational firms that use the metals to relocate to China. China calls the move rash and unfair, while vowing to defend its rights in trade disputes. Things only got worse in the years ahead, with countless more groundless accusations, pointless facts, deadly mistakes, all stopping for a second in 2014 for a joint climate announcement where both parties agreed to work together to reduce carbon emissions, with both of them being two huge nations who no doubt produce the most carbon emissions. This was huge for the world. It was nice to see that they could put aside their political disagreements for the betterment of the society. And for a while, it really did seem like a pseudo peace was restored. But with the US and China's little tariff war in 2018, the trade war just escalated with terms such as trade bullying and currency manipulator, and even ripping off being thrown around on a whim. And things only got worse with the dawn of COVID, both sides blaming the other for the pandemic, leading to discrimination, death, and more pointless rivalry. And with the US equating China's treatment of the Uyghurs to genocide, it seems as though this relationship will just never be anything but differences in opinions. From what started out as a big player being dismissive of a new recruit, soon turned into an international trade war between the two largest economies in the world. The trade war still continues, mind you, taxes being an ungodly thing to have to deal with. Though no one truly knows what will happen in the future, it's nice to believe that they may one day put aside their differences and come to a sort of truce. They'd be the power couple that can essentially save the world if they tried their hardest. But coming back to what I alluded to at the start of this Kaizen talk about how conflicts at this scale could potentially be a good thing. Maybe not always, but maybe there was a chance. But after this 1 month of research and looking at the destruction and hatred toward different communities that was like this create, I've decided that no, international conflicts could never be a good thing. People have too much pride and gusto to back down. Showing too much vulnerability as a leader of a nation is honestly quite dangerous. So, the best thing to do would be to just stop. But unfortunately, as I said, conflicts will always be a part of life. People are unique and so beautifully different. We all have different upbringings and experiences, and we've all had differences in opinions. The best we can do is respect others' beliefs and move on. At least on a smaller scale, it's easier to manage. On a larger scale, like between two countries, we can never control it. All we can do is remember that it's a political fight, not between the citizens themselves. So, discriminating against a whole nation, a whole race, is just uncalled for. Thank you.